Hello, and welcome to the Rockford Ready Radio Show. I am Anqunette Parham, and I am so excited to welcome you to this very important conversation that we are going to have today about mental health literacy. Rockford Ready is an initiative that is sponsored by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health, which funds activities in our community to advance health literacy. This grant was received by the City of Rockford Health and Human Services Department. And through this work, we partnered with the University of Illinois College of Medicine, Office of Health Literacy, as well as the College of Medicine here at Rockford, Cura Strategies, a healthcare marketing firm, and a number of community partners, including New Zion Missionary Baptist Church. And that is one of the reasons that we have some esteemed guests with us this evening to talk about this topic. So you may have heard some of our prior radio shows where we discussed topics like earlier in the COVID-19 pandemic, we discussed COVID and the church experience. We had a conversation about preparing for your doctor's visits. And today we're going to have a conversation about mental health literacy. This is something that's so critically important, and we know an issue that needs even more attention and focus, especially in communities of color. And so we want to play our part in ensuring that that conversation takes place. I mentioned earlier, I am Anqunette Parham. I'm the Executive Director of Health and Human Services for the City of Rockford, and I'm excited to have our panelists with us this evening. So I'm actually going to just kind of mention them, and we'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. So we have Dr. K. Edward Copeland here with us this evening, as well as Dr. Kevin Thomas and Layla Sarquis. So we can start with Pastor Copeland. You can go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
So I'm K. Edward Copeland. I'm third vice president of Usher Board number 4 at New Zion Missionary Baptist Church, also a member of the Winnebago County Mental Health Board. I work with Alignment Rockford, a public support school strategy organization here in the community, as well as with Advance Illinois, which is another public policy sort of statewide agency. But I'm most grateful to be the pastor of New Zion Baptist Church and a citizen here of Rockford.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here for this critical conversation. Dr. Thomas.
I'm Dr. Kevin Thomas. I'm the clinical director of Lantern Therapy, also Beacon of Enlightenment nonprofit. I am also the owner of MENtality Unchained podcast, as well as the advocacy program for MENtality Unchained. We do consulting for businesses, corporations, small entities, the common man, and we also do trainings in mental health.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here with us. Now, Layla.
Hi, good evening. My name is Layla Sarquis Cubillo. I am a professional in psychology. I'm a multicultural consultant and the founder and lead consultant at Multicultural Solutions LLC. I basically do consulting in cross-cultural psychology for communication, conflict resolution, and mental health literacy as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. All right, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So, all right, so we are here to talk about mental health literacy and mental health hygiene. Somebody jump in, tell me, what is it and why does it matter?
So let me go with mental hygiene, since that's a term that I've coined. So we talk about it at New Zion, been talking about it for the last 4 or 5 years, this idea that just like we challenge people of all ages in their dental hygiene, which means that you don't wait till you get a cavity, you don't wait till you need a root canal, but that you have regular checkups with your dentist and that you do things on a daily basis that will ensure that you have healthy teeth and gums. Well, if that be true for dental, our supposition, our challenge in the phrase mental hygiene gets at this thing that there ought to be, and there are, in fact, things that we can learn to do on a daily basis that will help build resiliency. There are things that we need to be checking in on with healthcare professionals before they become crises. And there are ways that we can encourage one another, that just like we don't want you walking around with raggedy teeth, we don't want you walking around with raggedy emotions and mentality. And so we encourage one another to practice good mental hygiene. That is, those practices, those mindsets, those even sort of cultural cues that suggest that mental health is important and that we have agency to the extent that even before we get into crisis, we can do some things that can help our own selves, and ways that we can build resiliency so that even if we do get in crisis, that we can bounce back quicker.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Anything you want to add to that, Dr. Thomas?
No, actually, I was just going to talk about the mental health literacy portion of it, because you have to have the literacy part before you can get to the hygiene part. And so mental health literacy is all about understanding, having the knowledge of like conditions, what causes certain mental illnesses, knowing the difference between mental health and mental illness. You know, there is a difference. And so being able to educate on those levels, I want to try to keep it as simple as possible, but yeah, more so to just keep things as simplistic as possible when it comes to mental health, how we can erase the stigma, and having that information at hand will help the common person understand what they need to do for their mental hygiene. So all these kind of work together.
That's awesome. I can really appreciate that definition or description of mental hygiene. It felt very simple. Mm-hmm. It felt simple. So what do you feel is the importance of that in terms of really kind of getting the messaging across as just making it something digestible that anybody can understand and buy into?
I think the key word here is agency. I would like to highlight that. In terms of mental health, I think that for a long time, and because of the way the healthcare system works, people feel in the dark because they are not taught to understand their emotions. What do they mean? What is the difference between a symptom and a disorder? They're not the same thing, or a pattern and a disorder. And so agency gives people the power back. And in terms of healthcare in general, having the power to be advocates for our own selves because we know what we're dealing with or because we understand the things that are happening to us is a key element in seeking mental health literacy.
Go ahead. I'd like to add something to that, because I think what she said is really key, because we're talking about mental health, but as she just suggested, it applies to all health. That in particularly these yet to be United States, we have a sort of mystique around healthcare professionals where, particularly depending on your age and culture, you can just basically hand over your health to other people as opposed to recognize, no, wait a minute. I'm my best advocate. Nobody knows me better than me, and nobody loves me more than me.
I'm an expert in myself.
I'm an expert in myself, so I need to be equipped to challenge, to interrogate, to partner with those who might have some specialty, but they are not a specialist in me. I'm the specialist in me. You might be the specialist in heart disease or this or that and other, and that's great. Let's work together so that I can be in the best position possible to thrive.
I think that's such a good point when you talk about just this mystique around healthcare professionals and what that looks like. And I think that's really been one of the key messages of Rockford Ready and all the work that we've done and the conversations that we've had and in this discourse that we've engaged in the community with has really been about the fact that it is your body, it is your health, this is your future. You have a right to take ownership. You have a right to get the information you need, to get the answers to the questions that you have, but really feeling like it is yours. Yes, you have a right to all of this information, and If you are not your own expert already, you've got a right to become your own expert.
Right.
You can get these answers to your questions. You have a right to those things, and really giving people the tools and helping to equip them to get that. But that brings me to a question about this concept today, in that you mentioned mental hygiene is so important, and that it helps us to address that issue before we're off the deep end.
Right.
So when we talk about being your own expert, what are some of the signs that someone might experience very early on to say, hey, you know, I might be going down a slippery slope, or what are some of the signs that someone can look for if they don't already know how to manage their mental hygiene, but just as kind of cues or things that they may notice about themselves, that they may feel like they're losing control? Or is my question making sense? You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to kind of address that too, because one of the things, the first thing you have to do is have self-awareness. And a lot of people, we go through life every day as a routine, and we don't have the self-awareness to know that what we're going through psychologically and physiologically as well. If you feel these tension in your body, that's signs of trauma, signs of stress. You know, so self-awareness is the biggest piece to even start the process. And so if we can teach people, and that's what advocacy is for, that's what the trainings are for, is teach people how to be in touch with themselves. And we come from a culture that we are always in survival mode. And so when you're in survival mode, you don't see the signs and until it's too late. And so that's caused those crises to become more of a bigger issue. And so we need to really learn how to have self-awareness first.
This ties back to minorities. And I want to kind of backtrack on that, because it's important to mention that as minorities, and I'm speaking specifically for the Latino community, which is my experience and it is my ethnicity, that we are not taught to be self-aware. There are certain cultural cues that we respond to that are automatic because they're inherited.
Right.
And we don't question them. And being minorities, especially in a country like the United States, you are taught to listen to the doctor and to just say yes and to just kind of be, you know, flowing with, you know, whatever process they choose for you, as opposed to speaking up, talking about your experience, and becoming an agent to your healing. And I think it's important to touch on the fact that it's not the same for minorities to have that agency as it is for other populations. And this is the importance of mental health literacy getting to everybody and taking into account those cultural cues and those societal cues as well.
This is excellent, and I was intending to sort of press you guys on the fact that Dr. Thomas, your doctorate is in traumatology and epigenetic trauma.
Epigenetic trauma. Yep.
And soon to be Dr. Sarquis Kubilo, your doctorate is in intercultural and international psychology and trauma, and how that sort of plays out. And so what you've landed on and what you've just sort of highlighted, I think, is really crucial. Back to Anqunette's question. So one of the things Dr. Thomas mentioned was self-awareness. So just as an example, one of the ways that we can practice good mental hygiene is checking in with ourselves on a regular basis. So every Sunday morning in Sunday school, I ask everybody, okay, check in. Use your words to tell me how you are feeling today. Where are you emotionally? And not just the 8 words that you usually use.
Right.
There's a whole rainbow. We give out, I forgot what we call it, but
color wheel.
That color wheel that has like a whole, it's not I'm mad, I'm frustrated, or it's not I'm frustrated, I'm disturbed, whatever. Actually use your words to locate yourself. And then the second thing we do, and we do this every Sunday, this is mental hygiene. Okay, now that you've checked your temperature, adjust the thermostat. So what are you most grateful for right now? Because the truth of the matter is that the stories we tell ourselves as minorities, as women, as any other type of demographic that perhaps is not receiving all that it should, you know, within the particularly within the healthcare systems, because women of color, very often pain is, discounted,
As
minimized.
minimized, and all that type of thing. So when you get all of that, the point I'm trying to make is that since we have all of that working against us, we have to develop some mechanisms like checking in with myself. Where am I right now? What am I feeling? What am I feeling in my body? And can I describe it? But then also get used to the fact that wherever I am, I can decide to tell myself a different story, to write the rest of the story differently. Yeah, I started out today. I didn't have a good night's sleep last night. Feeling kind of blah, or it's raining outside. But you know what? I'm grateful because, hey, I got to see my friend, or I talked to so-and-so, or I had a good meal. So it's the story you tell yourself about your experience that actually is part of good mental hygiene.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's really good. How do we go about actually recognizing the symptoms of mental distress? Where do we start? Well, wait, you told us self-awareness.
Yes.
Okay, so after that, so we got step 1 down. We're self-aware. How then am I recognizing, is it a moment? Is this a pattern? Like, how do I know when I'm in a moment of mental distress, and how can I identify that properly?
I would say you would measure it by how much is disrupting your regular functioning in life. And even the diagnostic manual, that's the basic criteria for any disorder, is that there has to be a disturbance in the natural rhythm of a person's life that is interfering with their normal functioning or their regular functioning. So I would say if it's interfering with your sleep, if it's interfering with the way you interact with others, if other people are telling you that you are on edge constantly, because sometimes we may not be that aware, and we're just trying to cope, and like Dr. Thomas said, just surviving in this, surviving prone society. I would say that if it's disrupting important areas of your life, then you know that that's a symptom that you need to pay attention to and that you may need to seek help for.
That's good.
That's awesome.
That's really good.
Can I pick up on something that she said
Please.
as well? Because I think it fits in with our general discussion about mental hygiene. This is also the importance of community and developing healthy relationships because of something that she said, and that is, to the extent that I'm not completely self-aware, if I'm in community, others can point out to me, I've noticed this pattern, or I noticed that you're just not yourself, and it's been for an extended period of time. Maybe we need to get some help, type of thing. And so being open and developing the art and skill of maintaining healthy relationships, I think, is another part of recognizing the symptoms of when I'm off.
That's really good. That takes me in the direction of thinking about historically. Okay, so we know the importance of community, but historically, the church, and particularly the Black church, has not always been a place where, even though I might have community there, that may not be community that was safe for me to seek resources or help or have frank conversation and be honest and or vulnerable about mental health and or related struggles. So how important do you think that is now that we've made some headway, but really how important it is for even that safe space and community to continue to really be what we need it to be for folks to get what they need in this area of their lives?
I know he wants to jump in on this one, but I want to kind of paint the roadway a little bit with this. Historically, we as a church and as a people of color, the church has been supposed to be our safe haven. but it hasn't been our safe haven consciously, because we thought it was our safe haven, but we were taking in norms that wasn't really normal per se, right? And so we experience these things and we say, okay, this is how I was raised and this is traditional. And so when we feel like that, when people push back on, oh, that's how you do church, it's not necessarily the correct way, but that's the way mom and dad and grandma and grandpa taught us how to do church. But we're taking, what we do is we take the element of what's truly, biblically, what is God saying to us? He's really saying we have to have empathy. Compassion.
Right.
And if you can't have empathy and compassion for people, then you can't really teach that. So it's important from a leadership standpoint, from the top to the bottom, the leader must first. And I'm speaking that because he's right here, but the leader is first and paving the way for the people to come behind him or her to foster this mental health new what should I call it, new trend, I guess I would say. And so with that being said, if the leader is taking in a lot of things when it comes to mental health, willing to make the changes, seeing the need for empathy and compassion for people, then the people will follow. Because this is an article that I read that 90% of people that's in church go to their pastor first, even if it's dealing with marriage, if it's dealing with family issues. They go to their pastor first because they trust that their pastor is not going to lead them astray. And so if we can get our pastors on board, we're not taking away from what God has called them to do. We're just adding alongside. So we're a collaborative approach when it comes to mental health and preaching and pastoring people. And so if we can have our leadership first to take on that, our people will follow.
That's excellent.
So it's a multi-layered answer to your question, but your question is the question. And part of it, Dr. Thomas has already alluded to, and that is, if the head is sick, what do you expect of the body? You know, it's almost like, I think in the history of discovering like germs and all that kind of stuff, they found out that before surgeons were washing their hands, they were the ones that was causing people to be sick. I'm working on you, but with my nasty hands, you come out worse than what you went in for. And sometimes that happens at church. Because if the head is sick, guess what you're spreading? Sickness. Type of thing. So one of the things that we challenge is, matter of fact, I was just talking to a pastor friend of mine today, this idea of you have no right to be, you have no reason, you should not accept the privilege of trying to counsel other people and you're not being counseled. Every pastor needs a therapist.
Absolutely.
Because even if something ain't going on in your life, you're receiving so much whatever from other people, you need a way to process that. But aside from that, to your greater question, there's been some cultural as well as structural things. So depending on the denomination and the expression of faith, there's some built-in dysfunction in certain expressions of faith that masquerade as Christianity, that are really based on guilt, condemnation, shame, and manipulation. So that toxic religion, so to sort of get to the quick, we have to constantly be auditing what we've inherited.
Yes, absolutely.
That is to say, just because mom and them did it, or just because the church where I came from, that's how they did it, that don't mean it's right.
That's right.
Correct.
What does the Bible say? What did Jesus say? Not what you think he said. Did you actually read what he actually said? Like, for example, people say, well, God helps those who help themselves. That ain't the Bible. Ben Franklin said that. The Bible says he's near the brokenhearted. He binds up their wounds. He helps those who can't help themselves. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's things like that where if you actually would read the Bible, strangely enough, the book of Psalms, the largest book in the Bible, goes through the gamut of every possible emotional state of being and feeling that you can have. And if you would read it, you would have the vocabulary to be able to express how you feel. But again, that's a theological thing. So we got some structural problems, sometimes denominationally and whatever. There's just a system of abuse. Let's just call it what it is, spiritual abuse. Then there's some cultural things that sometimes, in the church where we don't talk about that type of stuff, or you can't
Yeah.
question God.
Yeah.
What do you mean you can't question God? Every great saint in the Bible, that's what they were known. Abraham, David,
Absolutely.
Job, you ever read it?
Absolutely.
There's 42 chapters of him questioning God while he was suffering.
And that translates into also the conversations that we are not having in church circles, not only in the Black church, but I think generalized in all churches. I know that Latino churches don't have these conversations. What conversations am I talking about? Conversations about sexuality, conversations about marriage, conversations about being single, conversations about mental health, where people can feel safe to come to their pastor and express those things. And Pastor Copeland touched on a subject that is very important for me to highlight. The pastor has to be healthy. He or she doesn't have to be perfect. They just have to be healthy.
Right.
And I think that what Pastor Copeland particularly is doing at New Zion is revolutionary for all the churches, independent of denomination, because I have never seen a pastor taking such an honest conversation, and engagement with the people about these subjects. We need to talk about these subjects, and that's because that's why people suffer in silence. And when there is no light, whatever is there festers. And the light and the oxygen allow it to heal. When you have an infection, you have a cut and it gets infected, you have to expose it for it to get oxygen to heal. If you don't, it doesn't. And it perpetuates. And the problem is that it perpetuates from generation to generation to generation in the name of tradition.
Right.
That's something we have to make a very clear distinction between the two terms.
I think Pastor said it well. He says, we think because what Big Mama and Big Dad did taught us that was right, but it may not necessarily be right. For the time that they lived in, that may have been good for them. But we have more knowledge, more information, more resources at our fingertips, and we've learned. We study. We go to school to learn how to help our people more so than helping us. And so I think what she's saying, we bragging on our pastor, but at the end of the day, it is what it is.
Right.
If you put the effort into exegeting the scripture, you need to be able to tell them practically, how do I use this scripture? I'm going through this right now, Pastor. So you just preached on this. How can I use that? And so it's very prudent to say, okay, I'm gonna take the scripture. And what's going on right now in our society? What's going on with our people in our community? How do we relate this? And so I think that we need to take ownership of what Big Mama and Big Dad did and now bring it now to this time and say, okay, we can do better.
That's right.
And if we think of churches as family systems, because really that's what they are, and just organizations are too. They're an extension of the family system. There are family systems in which being depressed is a source of shame or being sad. This is it's used as a joke in the Latino community, and it shouldn't be, that when somebody says, oh, Mom, I feel sad or I'm depressed, they'll say, go do something. Go cook, go do something. So we have to also understand that depending on the culture, the family structure and the way that mental illness is viewed can also hinder the ability for people to speak up, to seek help. And if churches that are also resembling family units have these same patterns, then the person would tend to think that, okay, this is how we do it. They do it in my family, they do it at church, and so the dark deepens.
Right. And what's so fascinating about what you're saying is that there are organizations that have borrowed from the church what the church should be doing, and now, so at AA, what do? Hey, I'm an addict. I've been clean for this, that, and another, and everybody accepts, and there's
you have to.
And then recognition, positive recognition.
It's accountability.
Recognition.
It's all about accountability.
It's a positive reinforcement. It's a acknowledgement, all those types of things. Well, they got that from the church. That's how the church is supposed to operate, and how families ought to. So the church needs to be the corrective for the family, not the magnifier of family dysfunction.
Amen.
So, in other words, if mom and them did this, or, in my family, we didn't talk about stuff, well, the church ought to be that alternative family that shows you, okay, but this is how it's supposed to be. That's not casting aspersion on Big Mama.
No,
But there's a better way. Here's a better way. Let's do this so the next generation doesn't have to fall into the same patterns that we're struggling to get out of.
Absolutely.
That's good. So now, we're in environments. Well, if we go to New Zion, in my church too, I got to give my pastor credit. You know, I appreciate the fact that he models from the pulpit. You know, the fact that he sees his therapist. He quits it when he's teaching. Well, you know, I was talking to my therapist and such and such and such. Okay, right. And you know, and we don't have to worry about him getting in the pulpit. You know, metaphorically bleeding over us either. We know that those things are being handled. So now we're in these environments that there is more normative discussion around you know, our mental health, around being self-aware, and seeking the help that we need. Let's talk a little bit about knowledge, beliefs, and attitudes about self-help as compared to professional help in this space.
Gotcha.
Yeah, give me something.
Self-help and professional help. I think there's a tendency of, we've already alluded to it, of shame and embarrassment. Stigma is only a stigma because we've created it. You know, we refuse to talk about it. We refuse to discuss it. So we internalize a lot of things. And as we internalize, we think we can fix it, or we can just do as we can until we can do better. You know, and so seeking help and professional help is always a healthy way to approach it, because if you seek the right person, the collaborative approach continues to keep going, because that therapist, that psychologist, they're going to pull the best out in you that you already have. I believe that we innately have the ability to heal ourselves. And so if you buy into that therapist or that professional will actually come alongside you and see those same attributes. And so it's not so much of a pull and tug with self-help rather than professional help. And so I think we get caught up in those things. We sit isolated with ourselves and think we can do it on our own. Or we constantly tell ourselves that we're good. I get that from men a lot. I'm good. Like, what does that mean? I need you to articulate to me, what does good mean? And so, you know, we get caught up in that. And so, and for men, me as a man of color, is I see a lot of us just don't want to let those guards down. And we struggle with emotional intelligence. We don't know how to describe the emotions that we feel.
Right.
And if I have to describe that to you, I might get embarrassed. You know, so there are a lot of things that causes us to kind of try to do our own self-help when it comes to mental health. But if you can find the right person to come alongside you, not tell you what to do, and not beat you up for what you're doing or judging you, then you can have a great, successful therapeutic relationship that you're constantly healing. You're not saying, oh, I'm healed and I'm done. My motto is, we can't fix it. We always try to manage it. Because anytime something happens, you can be right back at square one. And so you want to be able to manage it when those symptoms start to come back.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, it's really a shift in our perspective, because we failed to understand that, honestly, professional help is an extension of self-help.
Absolutely.
That's a great way to think about it. It's a partnership, a collaboration. It's cooperation, just like it should be in other aspects of health care. That, I go to get a checkup, not because something's wrong, but hey, doc, what, just check my numbers. What's that number? Matter of fact, I'm going through something right now where my numbers, strangely enough, my A1C is still well below, diabetes, but it's trending. And Doc said, wait a minute. I said, okay, Doc, hang on. I got to get off these cookies. What's going on here? Type of thing. Why? Because we're partners. You monitor that, I'll monitor this.
Right.
And we're going to be all right.
In self-help, really, we do this every day, all the time. We just have categorized it as certain books that we can buy or certain workshops. But self-help is just how you live with yourself every day. And I think I believe wholeheartedly that each one of us is doing the best we can with the resources and the circumstances that we have. So self-help is, since you get up in the morning, do you drink enough water during the day? Do you have your alone time? Do you have your silence? Everything of that nature is self-help. We shouldn't separate it, as Dr. Thomas said, from the therapeutic help and the workshop, and it's one continuum.
Yes.
That works in conjunction with what community, and that means the therapist, the pastor, our friends, our family can do for us in that context.
So you've said something I think is just really crucial that we need to highlight, and that is it's not just either or, it's a continuum, but it's a continuum within community where I have a team. See,
Absolutely.
I have a team for my physical health. Dr. Oates is my doctor. Dr. Ike is my. Now I gotta, because I'm old. Now I gotta. I've been had a chiropractor, but I have a what do you call it? A kidney doctor. I got this one. I got a team.
That's right.
Type of thing. So it's not either or, it's building a team. It's a continuum of care within a community of care providers, with me being the main one, and my community
Absolutely.
Yes.
being part of that team, and not just the people who get insurance money.
And you developing enough health literacy to communicate effectively with your team.
Yeah.
Right.
To get what you need,
Absolutely.
That's right.
communicate your needs, and for you to understand what they're telling you.
Things as simple as we know now that the microbiome has more neurotransmitters than our brains. And for the stomach, the gut health was called the second brain for a long time, and it turns out it may be the first brain now because the microbiome. Right. So, what types of foods makes you produce more serotonin?
Yes.
Or more,
Yes.
all those things go along with the mental health literacy that
Right.
starts from the most basic things. Sometimes I'm not going to say the fix, but sometimes the help is so simple that we don't believe it
Right.
because it's too
Oh,
simple.
that's good.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. We're looking for a prescription
That's good.
when the prescription is them greens.
And so
And
it's
that
Colors,
water.
drink more water, cool your body, let your fat head
And lay yourself
Yeah.
down. Absolutely.
Not Skittles, right?
Not Skittles, and Skittles ain't colors.
sometimes you're run down because
Yeah.
you haven't hydrated properly in
Right.
days.
That's true.
And it's not spiritual and it's not mental. It's just you're not drinking enough
You're not
water.
drinking enough water.
So we are one mind, spirit, and body.
Right.
We cannot be sectioned.
Right.
We are one.
That's right.
Wow.
And part of this self-awareness piece gets at this idea as an example with today, and I think yesterday, it was sort of cloudy. Well, I know, and we laugh about this all the time.
Yeah.
I know I'm solar powered. I know that. And if I don't get enough sun, if I don't get some sun, if it's like 3 days,
Yeah.
I got an attitude.
Absolutely.
So now I have to recognize, okay, I know where this is coming from. What can I adjust? So, let me talk to my good friend. So I went to lunch with an old friend, and that was like sunshine to my soul
Absolutely.
Right.
because the sun wasn't shining.
Absolutely.
But I recognized where the deficit was, and I said, okay, well, I got to fix for that because I know where this is coming from.
There's a Spanish psychologist that I really respect. She wrote a book. It's called The Vitamin People. And it talks about how the environment that you are surrounded by in terms of people can be a vitamin or a liability. And so who are the people in your life that make you feel like Pastor said, that you go out for lunch and it's just like this surge of energy and you just feel like you have a totally different outlook. And you may not be even talking about problems or anything, but
Right.
just sharing some community. We have such an issue with not choosing our community properly. We want to fit in, we want to show off, we want to, let other people think that our life is perfect and perfectly put together, and we're not being genuine. Granted, not everybody deserves to know your pain. But you do have the agency and the duty, I believe, to find the people with whom you can share your intimate thoughts, what's bothering you, what's burdening you, because it really makes a difference.
That's
It's
true.
like taking a bottle of vitamins. And that's part of self-help too. And it's part of that team that Pastor Copeland was saying, that community that comes alongside you, that, you know, a hug, a smile.
Right.
What you're talking about, when I hear that, and this is kind of how I'm gonna articulate it, is boundaries. I need to know how to say that's not good for me. You know, what I tell my clients is that, you know, we set boundaries on people, but you also need to set boundaries on yourself.
Absolutely.
What you're able and what you're willing to accept in your life. And so my daughter taught me this, my soul tribe, people around me that feed me in a healthy way, and I can feed them
And
in
I
a
can
healthy
feed them.
way. And so if you find someone that, I hate to use this term, but toxic, you have to release. You have to learn how to detach yourself from them people, because you're holding on to them for what reason? And so if you're trying to get something from them that they don't have because they don't have the capacity to give you what you need, then they shouldn't be a part of that soul tribe. And at the end of the day, you're responsible for you. And if you take on that responsibility of saying, you know what, I'm going to make sure I'm the healthiest I can be. And that means I'm going to make sure I'm eating well, I'm sleeping well, I'm working enough hours, not too many, because we know how we like to work.
Right.
And so we have to really take, as Pastor said, take an inventory of ourselves and our daily walk, making sure that we're not adding too much, we're not adding not enough. We just got a nice little balance. I'll tell you a true story that happened to me last year. I got vertigo really, really bad. Never had it before in my life. And I went to the doctor, and they said, okay, we'll run a series of tests. And me thinking that I did something wrong or I didn't eat properly, I was vitamin D deficient. And we don't think about that. In the wintertime, we don't get that vitamin D. And so she put me on vitamin D just so in the wintertime I can get that vitamin D. And you're talking about the sun, you're talking about people. You know, if you're not getting those necessary nutrients, you may have to get on supplements and things of that nature. So we have to make sure that we're paying attention to what's happening to us and with us.
And what are we watching? What are we listening to?
Yeah.
Our brains are overwhelmed. This is the era of overwhelmed brains, because if you scroll on Facebook, for instance, for 5 minutes, you get information in 5 minutes, an amount of information that your brain is not able to handle properly.
Absolutely.
It goes from like a recipe to something political to some, and it's just our brains are scattered. And when our brains are scattered, our emotions are scattered as well. Wow. And so we often don't think about that, because it has become customary. It has become almost as a soothing tool that we're using at the end of the day, at the end of a long day at work or with people or dealing with difficult people, that we get on our phones and we just think we're relaxing, and we're overwhelming our brains even more.
Right.
Absolutely. It's a stimulus.
And the challenge I see here is that we all struggle with that, because it becomes so addictive to our brains, that rush of information and emotion and the different emotions that you get to experience in a 10-minute window create pathways in our brains that we need to train our brains to, heal. And so that requires intention, it requires discipline, but it is totally worth it. It is totally worth it.
So I just finished a book called Dopamine Nation that makes that exact argument. It's a whole book on what she literally just said. And to her point, and to something I think we need to make sure we come away with this conversation, it's the little thing.
Yeah.
It is.
It's the little things.
It truly is.
Little, small differences, little, small changes, small additions or subtractions from your routine can make a world of difference. We laugh when I say eat your colors, but that actually does.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, drink more water. That really actually does do something for you. Getting enough rest, or planting something green or making something beautiful, with art or whatever, using your hand, getting outside. All of these things make a tremendous difference. And one of the biggest differences that you could see in your emotional and mental hygiene would be if you can take a fast from Facebook, if you can let go of digital media.
Social media, yeah.
For if you could just turn your phone off for an hour a day and put it in a different room. Layla always talks to me about the fact that even if you have it off, but it's in the same room, it's still drawing energy from you.
It attracts you.
It's still attracting you.
You're not gonna lay there long.
Yeah, but if you put it in a different room,
Yeah.
who was that? I think it's Anne Lamont. Somebody says anything will work better if you unplug it for a while, including you. So something as simple as a fast from digital media, or a fast from your phone 1 hour a day. Things that are not really a challenge. It's just, okay, I can do this. I can actually do this. We talk about, from a Christian perspective, picking up your Bible before you pick up your phone. Because everything in there is bad news.
Yeah.
So why start off with bad news?
Yeah.
Especially currently.
Wow.
I
That was perfect, because we were going to go into give us,
Segue.
everybody give us 2 or 3 strategies. Give us 2 mental hygiene strategies. So you gave us some, Pastor. So come on, Dr.
And so I was ready to jump in, and I was like, I feel like we were double dutching. If y'all, I'm aging myself. But you know what? It's like he said, the simple things, like just being able to go work out, take a walk in nature. I love to walk in nature, and if you're in a great green area, take your shoes off, let your toes go in the grass and feel the dirt. Those are like healing for the soul.
Absolutely.
Being able to connect with nature. So simple things, journaling.
Right.
Mindfulness things, meditating, prayer, so it's a lot that you can do that you don't need a professional for. And so sometimes it's okay if you can come up with some simple, practical things, but we do it all the time. We just don't know we do it, but we do it in passing. Let me do a quick prayer and keep going. Let me stop by the park for a minute. I got to go in 10 minutes. No, take your time. Engage with whatever it is that you're doing, and that's the most important thing. You'll see the stress start to fall off you. It start to melt off you, because you're not thinking about anything else but what's in front of you. Learn how to be in the here and now instead of in the past or the future.
That's good.
Amazing.
I would say also, just to continue on that, a great teacher told me once something very simple that I didn't understand at the time, because I was very young and naive. He said, do what you do. If I'm washing dishes, I'm washing dishes. I get to feel the texture of the dish. I get to feel the water in my hands and the soaps, the slippery soap. We have now accustomed our brains to be washing dishes and thinking about what I'm going to make for dinner, but also the bills that I have to pay. Something so simple. Do what you do. And then another thing that I would say is self-care. It's kind of like positivity in the culture narrative, in the mainstream culture narrative. Like, everybody tells you, be positive. Okay, but how do you do that? You can't always be positive, but you can always have hope. And so just do the things that speak to you. For some people like me, it might be a walk in nature that is really healing, or dancing. That's like my therapy. But for some other people, it may be reading. And for somebody else, it may just be being in silence for a few minutes or taking a hot bath. Do what speaks to you. We are unique, perfectly created in our uniqueness. And so we need to find that and honor that. That would be my advice.
Awesome.
That's good.
So
Y'all gave a handbook.
one last thing I would add, because it sort of hints at something they said, and that is figure out a way to take care of something, whether it be a plant, a pet,
Yes.
something outside of yourself. Because a lot of the unease, a lot of the sort of inability to get out of certain eddies in our minds is because we're always so focused on ourselves. But if you could do something as simple as growing a little container garden, taking care of a plant, or getting a pet, taking care of a pet. I mean, what do they call it? 'Cause emotional support.
Yeah,
animals
support-
now.
support
I mean, there's
dog,
something to that.
Yeah.
Or doing something for somebody else. So my mother she'll be 88 years old this year, and she gets up every morning. She has an agenda, and usually it's to go see about the old people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell her, I say, wait, you the little old woman, but the reason she's in great health is because she's taking care of something. She's looking after some. Obviously you got to have boundaries.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
idea
Right,
is not
right.
make everything about you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
As opposed to taking care of God's green earth.
I like that.
Doing a garden or, something to get yourself out of you.
Yeah.
And that's how our gifts transcend too. That's how the beautiful things that God has given us and the gift transcend and go to, because those gifts are not for us, they're for others to put in the service of others.
That's beautiful.
Amazing. That's amazing. How do you recommend that people find accurate mental health information?
That's a good question.
Wow. I would say because we're all members of church, you start where the people that you trust, because it's not easy being vulnerable. And so you want to start with people that you trust, and hopefully they can help you. If they can't, then you have to find information the best way you can. And the best way you can is always building relationships. Build relationships with different people. Don't isolate yourself from people to where you can't get the support and the help that you need when you need it. And so that's my recommendation. It's not always that you will be able to find someone through your immediate circle, but most of the time your immediate circle may know someone. And I always tell people this, especially when it comes to therapists, and I speak about this because I'm a therapist, but is just like you're looking for a car. We talk about this a lot. Just like you're looking for a car, go in asking questions. Go in and see if that car fits for you, if that therapist fits for you, because it's important that you get with the right therapist that's going to come alongside you. You don't want to go into a situation where they're telling you that's a coach. And so there's a difference. And so you want to give them tools that they can work with because of the collaboration and because they see something in you that you need to tap into. So, look outside of your circle and, for people that, and then there are websites, there are newsletters, there are all kind of social media platforms that mental health in our city they're talking about now, which I can't say that I'm proud that we are trying as a city to combat this mental illness epidemic, but at the same time, we still got to do more. So.
Websites like the American Psychological Association have good information on, certain mental illnesses and mental distress, and also your local mental health services like NAMI here in the Illinois area. If you don't have somebody that you can immediately go to, or you don't feel like you can talk to this about somebody, you can start by going into those websites and connecting with somebody there, or looking up the information to see if what you're feeling may be related to a mental illness, and then go from there to seeking the community or the person that you trust that might help you, that you would partner with to get the help that you need.
That's excellent. That's excellent. This has been just phenomenal. You have blessed me, my pen. But yes, it's just, I think this has really been just a great addition to the array of topics that we've talked about in this work around health literacy. And like Dr. Thomas said, our community is going in the right direction in terms of having these conversations and bringing the issue to the forefront and creating funding opportunities for resources to be made available in our community. So I think it's very powerful, and for us to be able to do that in community and for us to continue to think creatively about what that looks like for us. How do we meet our needs in our community? What does that look like? And so I really, I would challenge anyone watching or listening to think about that, and to reach out and have those those conversations because, again, we need to heal in community. I heard someone say today that when we change the I's to we's, you can transform illness to wellness.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that really resonated with me.
I'm still in that.
you can have it. I took it from him, so you can have it. But I think again, it's so powerful, and we are powerful.
Absolutely.
And for us to harness that in a way that brings healing is so necessary. And I'm so excited about the work that you all are doing in this community in ways that you're continuing to bring people together and help them to get the healing and the clarity and peace of mind that they deserve, and to do that in safe spaces. It's just amazing. So I definitely count it an honor and a privilege to have been able to sit with you all today. So we got just a few minutes left. I will entertain just closing comments from each of you, your lasting idea, and also you can take this time to also share with us anything that you've got coming up that you want people to know about, or other resources, how they can reach out to you, things like that. Feel free to share that now as well.
So, 3 things. One, we're having our 100th year anniversary in July, and we're going to be inviting the whole community to come and celebrate with New Zion for our centennial. We thank God for the privilege He's allowed us to be able to be in this community and to serve down through the years. And so we're looking forward to that. But more sort of directly on point, I want to remind people that we do have a Winnebago County Mental Health Board, and that the Mental Health Board is funding a whole lot of different services and opportunities. We have a sort of systems framework, a community of care systems framework, where we're trying to fill in the gaps in the system. And we're funding a whole lot of things that many people aren't even aware of. So I would invite you to go to the Winnebago County Mental Health Board site and take a look at the things for literally of all ages that you can take advantage of to help you to thrive, and even some resources there for those who might even be in crisis. And the last thing I'll say on this issue of mental health hygiene is that the little things add up to big things, just like with your regular health. I mean, it's futile for you to say at the beginning of the year, I'm going to get a gym membership and I'm going to go 2 hours every day. No, you're not. If you just say, you know what, I'm going to walk during my lunch period every day. I'm going to walk 20 minutes a day. If you do that every day over a course of a very actually small amount of time, you'll see some big differences. The same is true in the mental health space. The things we've shared tonight, if you could just start putting them into practice, just the little things, over time, you can see a really big difference in your mental wellness.
Oh, that's awesome. So I guess for me, my last parting words is pretty similar to what Pastor was saying, is that it's the small things. We often look at the larger things. Martin Luther King has this quote that, we have this tendency to look at the staircase and we just really need to pay attention to the step. And so we can't do a lot and everything at once. And so I want people to take away from this and what we call SMART goals. And SMART goals, the acronym for SMART is specific, measurables, attainable, relevant, and time-based. If we can put things in those categories and break our goals and our systems down to those simple things, we can conquer and we can have victory in everything that we do. And I think more than anything is prayer is powerful. If we can learn how to add prayer into our lives, because it's a form of meditation as well. And so if we can do that, I think that we'll be well on the way to trying to heal our communities. And more than anything, our community is what's important. We make up our community. We are our society. And so each individual focusing on these things that we have in our life and creating these soul tribes, that people that really feed into us, that will help. As far as what I'm doing, I I'll be doing training for Winnebago CASA in the next month or so on psychological first aid. Also, I'll be speaking at a conference here in the Rockford area for Mental Health Week. Pastor and I, we were just kind of talking about bringing back our summit. We had our summit last year, which was successful, and we want to start to probably think about making that annual. Hopefully, I'm not talking too forward, Pastor, but this is something that we spoke about. We want to continue to, bring things to our community that are practical, that our people can use. And so you can follow me on on one platform, which is MENtality Unchained, and that's everything that I do. I'll be making an announcement as far as the State of the Mind on May the 11th, and hopefully everybody tune in for that. It's going to be a big announcement for us as we move forward in the next year or two.
Do we have time?
Excellent. Go ahead.
It's just because of the time. I would say become a kind observer of yourself. That would be my advice. And just not advice, just an invitation. And that means observe yourself and how you respond to things, how you respond to people. Audit, if you will, the environment that you're in and how that's contributing to how you're responding emotionally. But do it with kindness. We are so hard on ourselves. We judge ourselves so harshly. And that actually prevents us from looking at ourselves from a place of change, from a place of I can do this. Right. This can be different. Somebody told me once, if you think about thoughts that are disturbing as the waves, and you're sitting in the in the shore, and you're just watching the waves come and go, as opposed to be in the waves, being in the waves, that would give you a perspective in which you can say, oh, I can observe this with no emotional attachment, so I can just discover where this is coming from and why. And that would give you that would put you in a better position to change it without harming yourself, with giving yourself compassion and kindness. And I would also invite you to check out my platform, Bright and Free by Layla, in which I share just content related to psychology, that is to positive psychology mostly, that is uplifting, and that might be an inspiration for someone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been amazing. And I will say I believe this was the first of many conversations like this. I'm going to proclaim it's the beginning and not the end, because this was wonderful. And I appreciate all of you bringing these resources to the front and to our community. It's so important. And please, for anyone that's watching or listening, please visit Rockford Ready. You can go to our website, rockfordready.org. You can check us out on social media platforms as well. We will be sharing some additional resources in addition to mental health toolkits and other information that will be available to the community. So we're looking forward to bringing even more resources, even more culturally relevant resources and opportunities for culturally relevant discussion to happen around this topic, because it is so important. So again, I just want to thank you all for being with us today. Thank you to SOAR Radio for being such a phenomenal partner to Rockford Ready. And we're grateful, and take care of yourselves and take care of each other.